All right. Let's see here. We'll see if I can get on the Transatlantic show. On the line.
Is real. And
sure.
Because
make sure I'm going through. I'm always paranoid about this. Da 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 da. All right, I am.
I think it's real. I think that's why we can't deny.
Okay, so somebody just asked, I had to pause it because I wanted to answer this. They wanted to ask, they understand there's biological sex. No, it's only sex. By saying sex, at least in the context of body makeup, is biological. You don't need to say biological sex because there is no other sex. It's all biological.
Biology that's universally female, right? Because it's the same biological mechanism happening whether these phenotypic traits are being expressed in a trans woman or in a cis woman or an intersex woman. You know, it's the same morphological pattern, right? Like, and that leads me to my question, which is, should we be prioritizing natural developmental pathways, or should we be prioritizing developmental outcomes? Because I think the reason why trans people are so unfairly and objectively inaccurately described as biological males, when, you know, if you say a trans woman isn't a biological female because her biology isn't perfectly 100% aligned with endosexual female biology. Endosexual is the opposite of intersex. So it just means like 100% aligned. But if you make that argument, by that same logic, then based on the developmental outcome, you can no longer classify her as a biological male.
Logan. Oh, I didn't see that name thing. I don't care. Yeah, I disagree with some of the positions of the trans movement and their views on gender. Well, I mean, I would have to clarify what their views are. I think I do, but I'm pretty sure. But yes. Thank you. I'm in the
male either, because, you know, especially once you remove the thing that creates.
Unless that person wants that specific.
On a species level, sure. Like, biological sex classification is that if you produce large gametes,
Ooh, that's in the discussion.
Sorry, finish.
Sorry?
No, go ahead.
So we classify them as biological female because all the other biological systems that are sexually dimorphic in their body are oriented around the production of large gametes. And when someone goes through a certain point of medical transition, they no longer produce any gametes. They no longer have reproductive biology that produces those. And they, especially if you go through the changes before puberty, like you end up reaching the outcome where the majority of your biology. I can go on.
No, it's okay. No, it's okay. I appreciate. I know you. I think you said last time you called in that you were like a geneticist or something. So I appreciate that you bring like a lot of scientific knowledge to this topic.
Yes,
I think what you're touching on is something that we've on TACUS, we've joked about how there are levels to the gender critical argument with regard to biological sex. Like level one, introductory biological essentialist says penis and vagina, that's male and female. Level two, they're going to talk about chromosomes, XX and XY. Level three, they're going to say it's your gamete size. It's small gametes or large gametes. But level four, and this is kind of what you're touching on, and this is why I would say I don't actually think you agree with J.K. Rowling, because she said a lot more than just what you brought up here. And when she says the things that she says, they're very loaded. There's like so many articles detailing. There's a great one by Hemant Mehta that I highly recommend everyone go read on J.K. Rowling and her whole history. But what we often call this last level, what you're talking about, is where they sort of create a like scientific soul in their mind, because it's about it's not about having the large or small gamete. It's about having biology organized around the intention of producing large or small gametes, which it falls back into absurdity, right? Like, what does it mean for your biology to have the intention of doing X, Y, or Z? Like, I think in some part, a really good faith interpretation is what you're talking about, where it's this notion of like the uninterrupted developmental pathway would have resulted in this. But it's like, it's not just medicine and intervention that disrupts these pathways. Biology disrupts these pathways all the time. And that's how we have intersex people in the first place. And
exactly.
I think that's where we start to get into the absurdity of the whole, like, the organized around the production of gametes argument. That's what I think of it as more like their effort to sort of construct this like male and female soul, but make it sound sciencey.
And I'm totally coming out of this from like a gender affirming perspective, right? Or a biological, sexually affirming perspective, where I would say that like, I completely agree. It's absurd. But also I think that the science would be on your side as far as like, look, gender critical people love to talk about the sexual dimorphism of every single aspect of the body, whether it is anatomy, physiology, secondary sexual characteristics. But the one thing that they refuse to acknowledge is sexually dimorphic is brain development. And yes, it's dimorphic on a spectrum, like many other things. But at the end of the day, like when something falls completely outside the standard deviation of male average patterns of brain development, and in the 50th percentile, directly in the middle of the standard deviation, which is what studies show when you look at regions of the brain like the BSCC, when you look at interconnectivity between hemispheres in the brain versus like interconnectedness between the hemispheres. I might have butchered it can get a little complex, but like I would say neurological congruence. Like if you develop a morphology of brain development that is organized around large gametes, and your reproductive system is developed around small gametes, that's a very real aspect of sexual incongruence, just as we would say the same thing for like gonad incongruence. If you have both ovaries and testes, which happens.
So Mila, I just want to jump in really quick, and my question is more
used his word
because I work in policy, I work in politics, I work in like the the sphere of like human rights and trying to make sure that, like you said, specifically is like coming in and the gender affirming angle of this conversation. So my question is I guess more more tactile to like the consequence. So if we had let's say we adopted your view on this, how would that affect people going into prisons? How would that affect people going into like gyms and locker rooms? Would your worldview affect that differently than the way that, let's say, go ahead.
No, I appreciate the question. I think it would, because I think it would classify certain trans women who've gone through a certain point of medical transition as, to fitting the criteria of belonging in a segregated female space by saying, Well, we already create an exception. We already acknowledge that intersex females are a valid variation of a biological female. No, they're not endosexual females. Yes, they may have some male development that was natural, but I would argue that whether that developmental pathway is, I don't even like the word natural, right? Because it's like medical transition is natural. You're going based off of the body's natural genetic blueprint for male or female phenotypic expression. Let's go with organic, right? Like organic developmental pathway versus, I would say that if we include intersex women, regardless of their complex female biology, because we say, well, that's a natural developmental pathway they have no choice in, I would make the argument that, a medical outcome, while it might not be like quote unquote organic or natural, it is still equally valid, just as if someone's born with a cleft palate or someone is born deaf and,
X comment cautiously.
I hear you. So I'm gonna ask you a hypothetical because these two things happen in the prison system currently. So it's actually a pretty high bar that prisons actually have for admitting a trans person into prisons. In fact, I would even argue that the bar is too high. So, for example, let's say this:
I think one of the mods put me on
there's
timeout
a trans person, let's say a trans woman, and they have socially been living as a trans person. They've done, some medical transition items, but not all of them. No surgical care, but they've been living their lives as trans persons.
I'm not even trying to irritate them. I'm just trying to.
They commit a crime that requires them to go to a state prison. And the judge has to make a determination that this person needs to go to prison. What prison would you send that person to?
I would.
And that's all you have the evidence of. You don't have the ability to do a brain scan. You don't have the ability to do chromosome checks. All you have is the criminal record. You have the evidence of them living as themselves, as identifying as a trans woman for, several years.
Because,
that is the evidence that you're given, and you're the judge presiding, and you know that this person's guilty. That's happening, but the sentencing is happening.
Many false things as he can.
And you have to choose which prison that they go to. In this scenario, how would you determine that?
So I would say that under no circumstances would I ever send a trans woman to a male prison, right? Like, whether they belong in a segregated part of the, female prison system, like, I would say that's
solitary confinement, though. That's already seen as a human rights violation.
No, and I agree, and I wouldn't. I'd say that's a complex question to answer, and I don't know.
The reason I bring it up. The reason I bring it up really quickly is because J.K. Rowling would say that person absolutely belongs in a male prison, and there's no way in hell that I would ever let them in there.
And I would say that is absurd because. Go ahead.
Well, the reason I say that is because that position is very clear across, regardless of how we look at. I understand you're coming at it from a good faith, and I appreciate you saying that person doesn't belong in a male prison. I really do. But the idea of then creating a separation between the female inmate population and this person, I feel is also a stretch. But I think, Arden, you were going to say something.
I was just going to add that, I think I agree with you in principle, Mia. I think the problem, and what Josie's touching on to kind of bridge this, is that in practice, it's really difficult often to on an evaluation of an individual, determining what would be the best fit for them. Even if you're saying, oh, well, they shouldn't go to a male prison, but maybe female prison isn't totally right. Well, I think it would be great to, in theory, have some third wing that's not solitary confinement that could be available. I don't think trans people make up a sufficient portion of the population, even in prison, to justify the state spending money on developing these entire separate wings, right? So I think the result is often that things like solitary confinement come up, which is kind of the problem. But I agree with you in principle. I think we're very aligned on the nuances of biology and the ways biology can change, and that, putting trans women with men would be just overtly harmful to those trans women, with really not protecting women in any meaningful way at all.
I would make one distinction, which is that because the thing is, I do believe that.
So if I don't get on next, I'm just not going to worry about it.
Like a person's brain biology is innate, right? Like that is, if I can make an analogy with, say, someone that has like incongruent gonads or genitalia, right? Let's say you have two sets of twins that are exactly, they have the same sexual incongruence, right? There's obviously a debate, like in the deaf community, of like, hey, is being deaf a disability, or is it like a superpower? Like, and this really comes down to it whenever it comes to like cochlear implants, right? Like a lot of people think that, like, a lot of deaf people think that like cochlear implants are like, I think they have a very similar perspective to gender criticals, which is like they prioritize acceptance over alignment. So like, gender criticals would say, hey,
I've been supporting
like,
homosexuals since the 80s.
The brain isn't sexually dimorphic. If your brain is in a female body, then you have a female brain. If your brain is in a male body, you have a male brain, right? Like, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because I do think it matters when it comes to answering this prison question, right? Because do we go with the biology that makes us human, that like we experience, or do we go with the biology that like fundamentally objectifies us, right? So the reason I bring up the deaf community is because I would say that, like, the same way that we would look at one, we wouldn't criticize either one of the twins. If there was one deaf twin that says, I want a cochlear implant because I prioritize alignment, or I guess I prioritize being able to hear, no one would criticize that twin. But also no one would criticize the twin and say, well, you're invalid for wanting to take a developmental,
biological women,
and not like change your developmental pathway. Same thing with like ambiguous genitals. We can say, hey, we all know that like someone can be born with ambiguous genitalia, ambiguous like gonad structures. We wouldn't say that, oh, that person like should be that, if the twin said, hey, you're invalidating my acceptance because you're choosing to go through surgery and align your body with like one biological sex, no one would criticize that twin. But gender criticals all the time will criticize someone who has neurological incongruence, that, their brain structure doesn't align with the biology of the rest of their body. Sorry, go ahead.
This is where I, like, as far as my sociological political science part starts to kick in here, because regardless of the cochlear implants that you're talking about, yes, I have heard about that, but the thing is, it's like the person has the free will of choice, right? If a person wants to go to that surgery so they can join the hearing community, then they have the right to do so. Just like you said, we wouldn't criticize someone who decides to not go through that surgery, just like we would just with the trans community. I understand the congruence there. The issue that I start getting at is like when we start to like go down and medicalize, and I know I'm one of the different hosts on the show, because I know a lot of hosts like getting into like the biology of it and like getting into like the cellular things. But for me, it's like, I always think about like the brain body map distinction and like gendered brain, all of that type of stuff is interesting facts. Like, I just like, okay, that's cool, but it doesn't change the fact that we can't go into people's brains and decide what they should or shouldn't.
You guys can understand.
And let me connect that.
Apparently.
I totally respect that, and I think that's a really important. I think that's a really important counterbalance to the medicalization argument, because PTSD, depression, like autism, we don't do brain scans, even if we can't understand the causal mechanisms of these conditions. We can ultimately say that, like, hey, there's a diagnostic criteria, and
clinical.
Right, and that's critical. And
you're closed-minded.
Look, like before we understood, before we coded the human genome, we understood that genetics was a thing. Before we understood the causal mechanisms of plate tectonics, we had empirical and observational evidence. So I don't think we have, and the brain science isn't like completely conclusive. Like, we can't look at the brain and say this is pink and this is blue, right? Like, it does get complicated. So I appreciate the critical feedback you're giving, because I do think it's important. If you let me, I would love to just kind of connect it and to kind of my overall point, right? Like,
yes, but I just wanted to add one thing. We have been on this call for like 20 plus minutes, so I do want to start to put a button on it because we do have full lines.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, if you want to, as long as you can be concise and start to put a button on it, I'm happy to let you tie it all together.
So wow, the video
absolutely. So
when you listen to the
call. Here's what I would say. Ultimately, the sorry, I'm not trying to delay. I'm just trying to make sure I don't ramble. I can give a concise. You know, the way I would connect it is by saying that, listen, like, whether it's a brain scan or whether we're looking at specifically cognitive patterns, it's not just like, oh, like you would say that a man is emotional, so he's a woman. No, it's not that. It's that men and women do objectively, on average, process their emotions based on different cognitive patterns. They also form memory based on different cognitive patterns. They interact socially based on different cognitive patterns. And if we can create an objective diagnostic criteria to, you know, not just gender dysphoria, which I think is the symptom, but get to the root cause, which is neurological incongruence, I do think there's a case to be made that we can segregate prisons based off of like, I guess, brain sex, but then where biological distinctions do come into play, like when it comes to anatomy and when it comes to like hormone profiles and stuff, then we can like dive into the minutia there. Just to like wrap it up with one more analogy. I know I love my analogies, but like, you know, a gender critical person would say, well, if you have a brain in a female body, it's a female brain. Well, by their logic, if we could, in say the year 2050, do a brain transplant and we could put a male brain and transplant it into a female body, then like, would a gender critical person finally like say, oh, I guess now you can biologically change your sex? Or would they say, well, no, you still have a male brain? So either way, they have to compromise on something. And that's why I think it's important to acknowledge neurological incongruencies and the science of brain sex.
I agree. The only thing I want to leave you off with, and I think you assuaged most of my concerns with that last little tie-in about how, like, even if we could translate our brains into another body, they wouldn't still accept it. But I think you maybe are on occasion a little too charitable to gender criticals. I think there are some who often call into the show who I agree are honest people who are just operating on an outdated model. However, I would say a lot of the people who are actively engaging in the gender critical space,
who said
J.K. Rowling and all of the subsidiary cliques within the gender critical movement, are far more dishonest and actively working to misrepresent and attack. I appreciate. I always want to approach everyone as if they're sincere with their claims, but when J.K. Rowling says she really thinks, you know, wear whatever you want and, you know, date whoever will have you, I don't think she fucking means that. And I think there's lots of good reason to believe that she's being dishonest about that.
No, she does. She means
that. I hope you know I'm not.
She just says, don't tell her what to say.
I hope you know I'm not in any way a fan.
Penises in her bathroom.
No worries. We gotcha.
Yeah, no worries. And we're not trying to accuse you of that. I will say this, and maybe this is where I would leave you with this call, and maybe you can do a little bit more research as well, is about the classifications of how we deal with spaces in particular, because that's where the conversation started as well, about people's uncomfortability of like people going into, you know, women's spaces or female prisons or things like that. And just understand that when a judge is doing these things for, let's say, a woman prison, they are looking at a host of factors. If somebody's going to prison because they're a shoplifter, like, I don't think the judge is like, oh my gosh, this person's going to commit rape once they're in prison, right? Like, it's you know, it's like one of those things where we need to really think about how the criminal justice system accounts for these things, right? Just like if a male was, let's say, homosexual and is a rapist, right? They would be like, hey, by the way, this person's criminal records, like, maybe we need to have some more, you know, observance of this person to make sure that they're not going to do more atrocities in prison and things like that. Like, the criminal justice system is incredibly complex, and there's a lot there, and there's a lot of injustices that are happening currently to trans people as well. Like in the state of Florida, they will buzz your hair and send you to a prison or to a jail just because you're like waiting for prison.
Women that have been
like it's like as a trans person. So there's a lot of injustices there. And also, I would look into the fact that a trans person is more likely to get abused and assaulted in a male space, like you said about the male prison, in a male space than they are in a woman's space. In fact, even trans people are more in danger in going into women's spaces nowadays because they're going to be assaulted and abused by cis women as well.
because they don't want penises in their bathroom.
And that's why I say that's the last place I would put them.
Cis
in like a male prison, like that's the last. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would just look at the kind of like more along the lines, not just like the transness of it all, but the humanity of it all. And I think when you take a look at it in that lens, I think it's easier for people to be like, yeah, we should be kind and considerate to humans. And we should really be weighing ourselves on that. And that's why I always talk about the quality of life of things, because if you're a political actor and you're doing legislation, you should be focusing on quality of life. I think as a first principle when you are trying to pass legislation. I think that's incredibly important to look at that. But yeah. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mila. I appreciate it. Have a good day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You too.
Bye. Bye.
Okay, normally we would take another call before we review the poll, but that call went on a little long. We have full lines and there's a lot of really good topics, and I want to give everyone a full shake. I'll let this last call screen, but I might close the lines there, meaning if you are in the host queue, if you've spoken to our screener, we will get to you. If you haven't spoken to our screener, then we were probably not going to get to you. I see there's one call initializing, so they dropped. So there's room for one call. One more call.
One call.
And then we're going to close the lines. But until then, we are going to discuss this week's poll. So again, do you believe House Republicans' federal ban on trans girls in school sports, especially considering their 50-year battle to overturn Roe v. Wade and century-long opposition to the Equal Rights Amendment, is sincerely about protecting fairness in girls' sport? I don't think there's any ambiguity, and our position, given the wording of this, House Dems have actually been calling this the Republican Child Predator Empowerment Act, basically because there's no enforcement mechanism within this bill. And so the fear is that, as was proposed in a couple of states, though I don't think it actually ended up being enforced this way, there could be like genital inspections, for example. Like if this girl gets accused of being trans and needs to compete, maybe she's changed her documents, and so they need to do an inspection. The concern is that this would sort of protect and enable maybe healthcare providers or people involved in these sports leagues to sexually predate on young girls and get free access to look at their genitals. So, the reason I added the Roe v. Wade thing is like Equal Rights Amendment was first proposed in like the 1920s. We are now in the 2020s, and it still hasn't passed. Republicans have been opposing it for a century. They overturned Roe v. Wade. Child marriage laws have been almost unilaterally opposed by Republicans. The notion that they care about protecting women, let alone girls, is absolutely absurd. They only care in as much as it is profitable to them. They could have passed something on housing or grocery prices or any of the things that actually affect the majority of Americans, but instead, their first priority in the new Congress, their first priority has been passing a bill that affects less than 1% of American teenagers. Like, this is a fraction of people that this applies to. So to the extent that you think Republicans represent your interests, just know they've wasted your tax dollars to stop a handful of girls from playing like soccer with their friends. But Josie, you have stuff you want to get into on that. So now that I'll get off my soapbox.
Yeah. No, it's fine. We only had 2 Democrats vote for this. And that is fantastic news. We've been working very hard, and we thought we were going to lose more. And we were able to only have, and I'm going to call their asses out by name, Texas Democrats Vicente Gonzalez and both of them are Texans, and Henry Cuellar, both voted for the trans bans because they don't understand how to be good Democrats and vote for the values of trans people. So what does this mean? Well, one of the things that we remember and realize is,
well, look at this.
This
Chad,
was the easy
saying, I'm shocked,
and I say easy one,
yes.
as in this is the easiest one for people to say, oh, but women's sports, right? And we still only had 2 Democratic defectors. This is great news. Because that means that they are going to have even less support for gender affirming care bans as well. And I think we can beat this in the Senate as well. So this is great news, and I'm taking this very positively. Remember that just because something passes the House does not mean that it's going to pass the Senate, and the Senate is much harder to pass things because it's filibuster.
Up to a certain age,
so we know that this right now is looking good for where we are starting. Like Arden said, we are starting out the gate with this stuff. And they were hoping to give this to Trump to be a day one bill as symbolic
should be put
for him to sign after he got inaugurated on the 20th. Well, it's very highly unlikely that this is going to happen now because we are in lockstep.
And I look back and I say, "Oh my God!"
Can it still happen yet?
When I was 20.
However,
what did I know when I
am hopeful.
I didn't know anything.
That this is a good sign considering we only lost 2.
We assumed that kids know they want to be.
So it was a strict party line vote outside of those 2 Dems.
What they are is kids.
Yeah, no, that's great news, and I really hope people, when you're talking about this with like your family and your peers, the reason I went on the rant that I did about, they could have focused on X, Y, and Z first is because you have to remember they've run on a platform of like economic populism. They want to bring relief to you, the working person. If you're a Republican watching this right now or a conservative because you hate watch or maybe you genuinely want to learn something but you don't agree with us.
Watching this?
I want you to consider that egg prices went up in the new year because of the rising bird flu. Your egg prices aren't being addressed. Your housing costs aren't being addressed. They're spending your tax dollars on this. It doesn't mean they're not going to eventually get to those things, but this is where their priority was. This is where their first burst of energy was. The most productive that an administration is usually in the first, 160 days of a administration taking over. So, or that's not the right number. It's very early in the beginning of the administration where you're able to get the most stuff done usually. And this is what they spent that energy on. So every time
if you don't think that hasn't
you hear them talk about how they're for you, the working person, remember that they would rather spend their time legislating about the tiniest fraction of a percent of the population to make a group of marginalized people. And by the way, in a situation where, to the extent that there are stack differences in competitiveness, they matter the least in the grade school level, right? This is more about team building, cooperation, rather than competitive accolades at this stage. This is what they're stopping. They're trying to prevent trans people from participating in their community in a way that doesn't out them or make them, a center of a bigger problem.
I mean, there are so many atheists out
and
there.
It's all in the avoidance of actually doing the things that can help you. So,
and he is
yes. With that said, we do have a lot of calls and we have to get to them. So there's some really interesting ones too. So I'm really excited. I am going to close the lines now, so we won't be taking any new calls. But for the 6 of you who are here who've been screened by Jess, our call screener, thank you, Jess. You're amazing. We are going to get to all of you within the time that we can. So I am going to talk to, I would really like to talk to first Logan in Kentucky.
I'm on.
Has any pronoun. So Let's hear what she has to say. Logan in Kentucky wants to challenge our views and, challenge trans in general. Not entirely sure what that means, but Logan, you are live. Go for it.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing all right.
I'm sorry, I've forgotten. I know Arden, but the other host's name is Jose?
Josie.
Josie? Okay.
Josie.
Okay.
Josie, yes.
Well, I think, did I hear you say earlier that you don't think that a biological man should be placed in prison with women? Or no?
I don't believe that a trans woman should be entered in a prison with men, yes.
Okay, that's good. That's good. How about a biological man in a women's bathroom?
I believe that trans women should be able to use the bathroom.
I'm sorry, you do, or you think that?
I do believe that trans women should be able to use the bathroom that they best identify with, yes.
Okay.
You understand what I mean by trans women, right?
Oh yes, exactly.
Yeah, I was about to ask.
But I'm trying to keep it.
Okay,
I'm about biology.
Yes.
Well, so am I.
Not
That's why
really.
I say trans woman, because as a trans woman, when I say a trans woman, I am saying that a person who is assigned male at birth, biologically a male at birth,
Right.
who identifies as a woman is a trans woman. So I am being more biologically accurate than you are.
I'm sorry. Could you say that one more time? Because you lost me.
Okay. No, it's okay. It's fine. So I am a trans woman, and I said this at the beginning of the show. That means that I know that I was born and assigned male at birth, meaning that I am biologically a male at birth, but I identify as a trans woman. So therefore, because I identify as my gender as woman, I am a trans woman. So therefore, I am acknowledging the biological fact that I was assigned male at birth, but I am
I also want to ask Logan, what does biology have to do with prisons or bathrooms?
Well, the bathrooms are designated based on sex. And
Are they?
yes,
Because
they are.
trans women have used bathrooms for your entire life, women's bathrooms.
Well, that's between you and women. But I do know that there's a lot of women that do not want a penis in their bathroom.
So first of all, not all trans women have penises, but second of all,
True.
what if it's about sex? What measures are being taken in bathrooms that you go into to evaluate your sex? Because I've never been stopped when I've entered a bathroom and asked anything about my sex. I've never been scanned by anything to evaluate my sex. What role has sex played in bathrooms you've been in? Because I've never seen a bathroom that's evaluated sex.
yeah.
I'm just saying it shouldn't be legal.
Okay.
Okay. Repeat it one more time. Oh, all of them. All no, no. I'm an on. Well, wait a minute. Okay. Okay. Yes, believe in me. Correct. No, no, because I am a man. I was born a man. I've always been a man. I don't identify. No, no, no. I do not identify. I'm an honest person. And if I have a penis, if how has it been evaluated? This is just a pointless discussion, okay? It is not, it is, no, 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 no. Okay, let me talk. Let me talk. What do you mean by evaluated? What do you mean? Well, but see, yes, I did. Thank you. No, no, no one is checking what's in my pants, but I can pee standing up. Correct. No, 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 no. Arden. I called in to challenge. I just did. I just did, but I'm here to challenge.
Say no. So if it's a no, your next words, when I unmute you, I'm going to do that in a second. You'll hear a beep. That's you're unmuted. You can either concede that you don't access restrooms based on biological sex, or you can tell me the enforcement mechanism that was evaluating your biological sex. This is really simple. This is a binary situation. You are unmuted. Go for it.
Okay. Yes, it is enforced.
How? I asked you how.
Okay. If I walk in, now you can't see me, but I am a man. If I walked into a women's restroom, they would immediately call the cops and say,
So you're not going to answer the question.
"Oh, I just did. You just
Logan,
asked,
Logan,
just
no,
asked how it
no,
was
Logan,
enforced."
Logan,
Oh my
Logan. So I'm
God.
going to mute again because you don't seem to understand how logic works. And I'm sorry that somebody filled your head with lead when you were a baby, but that's not my problem.
Here's the
You came in
insults.
here claiming that your access to spaces has been based on your biological sex. And when asked to present how that's happened, you've said, I'm a man. I walked in. If I walked into the women's restroom, they would call the cops. Those are social enforcement mechanisms. Those have nothing to do with your biology. They're not unrelated to your biology completely. Obviously, biological men are going to have traits that make them look like men more often. That's just obvious. Nobody is refuting that. Not a single trans activist is disputing that cisgender males look like men most of the time. I'm asking you to present evidence for your point. And so I'm going to take you off mute again. And if you refuse to answer the question, I'm going to let Josie take over, and then I'm done with you because you're not being honest and answering the questions.
Oh,
So you are unmuted.
Please just let Josie take
So
over.
you can either concede
really seem like
or
a difficult
demonstrate.
confrontational
Logan,
person, and I didn't call here to be confrontational.
Logan,
just let Josie take
I don't
over.
give a fuck how confrontational you think I am. You can take your feelings and shove them up your ass because you made a factual claim. You can either concede that you were wrong or you can prove your point. Those are your only two options. Go for it. Go for it.
Oh, I just want to talk to Josie.
Okay, nice. I just want to point out to the chat and everyone watching before that happens that Logan refused to answer an honest, direct
Oh no,
question.
I did. I answered.
And when faced with, you're never going to talk over me on the show. Just to let you know, you're muted again. When faced with the obvious implications of his claims, he refused to answer because he realized the obvious implications of what he was saying and how wrong it was. So Josie, go ahead. He's all yours.
Yeah, Logan, you're gonna get the sweetness, but don't remember. I'm gonna say this right now. I can get spicy too. It's just that I sometimes I can be the sweet one on the call. So you got me for a second, but I do want to say before you say this, the social mechanism of people calling the cops is because of a social implication, not because of a biological one. That is why the calling the cops isn't like a biological one. But go on, Logan. What would you want to say really quickly?
Well, let Arden know and the people in the chat. I would be happy to confront Arden on a fair space where she can't mute me and ban me and call me names and insults.
Oh, keep
Logan,
crying about how you failed to address a question.
No.
Actually, hold on.
I'm talking to Josie.
One more thing, Josie, real quick before I let you go with him. Logan, if you want to stay on this call, keep my name out of your fucking mouth. Because you are a fucking coward and a liar. I decided to cede the conversation to Josie, so I don't need to talk to fucking liars like you. But if you're going to stay on the show, you're going to keep my name out of your fucking mouth and stop whining like a goddamn baby.
Oh my gosh. So brave online. Okay, Josie, where are
Okay, bye. If you don't want to talk
about my co-host that way.
Where are we, Josie?
Look, Logan. First off, I want you to respect the co-host on the show here because she's a dear friend of mine, and she's a dear friend. So we're gonna move on for a second, okay? On this point where I just want you to say, is there a difference between sociological somebody calling on the phone versus somebody like you having to like get your dick scanned before you go into the bathroom? Would you say that both those things are different?
Yes.
Okay, great.
I'm sorry, I just don't understand the point you're trying to get to.
I get to the point because the question is this, Logan, and I'm gonna reverse it back a little bit so we can get clear on different things. Okay, the reason that this is important is because there's a difference between sex and gender, right? The difference between sex and gender. Do you agree that those two things exist?
Gender is a concept, just like race.
Okay, but I answer my question. Is there a difference between sex and gender? Yes and no?
No, they're just two terms we assign to the same thing.
Okay, so do you have gender with somebody or do you have sex with somebody?
Well, you're using sex in a different way. Somebody said I wasn't.
Why? Why? If they're the same thing, then I should be able to use those terms interchangeably in a sentence, correct?
No, they're polysemous.
Okay, but so you say they're the same thing, even though that in that sentence I'm telling you right now that you can't use those two terms interchangeably, meaning that there is a distinction between the two just in language alone. I'm not even getting into the biological social construction yet. I'm just going into grammar.
Sure. Language develops here.
Okay, sure. So language develops. So therefore, we have to create different terms to describe different concepts because we evolve as a language and a species and we communicate better. So when we talk about sex, we're talking about how somebody is born. If they have a penis, they have whatever, chromosomes, all this type of stuff. And then the gender is what you would say woman and man. So somebody who identifies as either, right? And that is how the gender is associated with, right? You don't go, that's kind of the difference between the two things. And the reason that I'm talking about the difference between gender and sex is because once you understand that there's a difference between the two concepts, then we can have the conversation. That's why there was such a disconnect at the beginning of this call, because when you said that there is a biological reality, you were using gender and sex as the same. So therefore, when Arden asked the very basic concept of if biology has to do with you going into a bathroom, then that means that you are doing something with your penis, your chromosomes, something that you have to get, like something that you have to do before you even get in the door because it's enforced by biology, versus the fact that the example that you gave was social. So like what Arden said, a cis man, where nobody's arguing that a cis man is probably going to look phenotypically like a male. So when you go into that bathroom, the social construct of gender is kicking in, not the biological. Nobody's dick tapping you to say, oh, this person's got a penis. Now I'm going to call the cops. No, they're calling the cops based on sight alone. Would you agree?
Yes. But I can look at some
Okay,
I can look at some people and tell
so
they're
there's
still
a
a man.
difference.
I could look at some people and tell
Okay,
they're
but
still a man.
sometimes you can't. Logan,
women can.
I'm not even going to go into intersex conditions. I'm going
Good,
to.
because
What
they're
do you
not
mean,
trans.
woman can? Are you talking about beard?
no,
You're
no.
talking about bearded trans men?
No. I'm saying,
Do you know that
my
trans
gosh,
men exist,
you won't let me
right?
talk. Oh my gosh.
Well, I'm just letting you know. I'm just trying to clarify what you're saying. I'm trying to clarify what you're saying.
Women can tell.
No, that sometimes you can't tell because do you know that trans men exist, right? Do you know what a trans man is?
Oh yeah. It's a biological female
a trans
that wants
man
to be a male.
that transitioned into a male. Okay. So do you know that trans men can grow full beards and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between a trans man or a cis man?
Sure.
Do you understand that exists?
But I don't have.
So what would you do in the situation?
Oh.
What would you do in that situation if a bearded man walks into a male bathroom and they appear man, they've transitioned into a man, they've done everything to do with their manliness, they probably drive a truck, whatever you want to say a man is in your mind's eye, they walk into a boy's bathroom, then are you going to dick tap them to just make sure that it's biologically accurate, or are you just going to let them use the bathroom without calling the cops?
Oh, I don't care. I'm all for unisex.
Okay,
bathrooms.
so but you said that it should be illegal. So why is it legal for the trans man to go into the boys' bathroom or men's bathroom than the woman going into the woman's bathroom?
Okay, and this was what I was trying to get into with that other person that I can't say their name. But as I would like to thank Hawk Tua in the chat for stating that I don't get a chance to speak. And if it's your show, that's fine.
Stop crying and make your goddamn point. If you cry and bitch or moan one more fucking time, I'm going to drop your ass like a hot rock.
Oh
Logan, you are lucky that I am being this patient because I don't cry about not talking. Let's have the conversation.
Well, yes, exactly. I want to have a conversation. Not interrupt
well, let's do it then. You keep talking about it.
Okay. Here we go.
Logan, if you don't,
here we go.
Let's talk about it, please.
Here we go. Some women, I don't know the percentage, do not want a penis in their bathroom. It doesn't matter that I
don't care about them.
Prove it. Prove it.
Sex matters.
Bring what meaningful. No, sorry, I don't care about individual. Bring some meaningful percentage of women that are objecting to trans women in women's bathrooms.
Give me a meaningful percentage of women that approve of trans women coming in their bathrooms.
Women are the largest group of people who approve of trans rights.
Yeah.
In fact,
Logan, I'm a trans woman. And never one time, and I've used a lot of freaking bathrooms, airports, the Capitol. I've been all over the place, even early in my transition, and I've never had a woman one time in my entire transition over the last 5 years tell me that I don't belong in that bathroom when I walked in the door. I can guarantee you right now that you probably wouldn't even know that I'm trans.
There's a lot. There's a lot going into that. It could be they've done studies that women can tell men from women just by little dots when they walk. And
no, Logan, listen. We just went over that. We just went over that because we literally talked about the bearded trans man going into the bathroom and you said you wouldn't care.
That's me.
Yeah, because you wouldn't be able to tell.
But I don't dictate to women. It doesn't matter if I could tell. It doesn't matter. Oh, if a woman came into the men's room, I wouldn't care. But see, here's the thing.
Okay, but why did you say it needs to be illegal?
Okay. You guys want to say we want to protect rights or even give rights to people that are 1% of the population. Thank you for letting me talk. Okay, if it's 2% of the female population that does not want a penis in their bathroom, shouldn't we protect them too? That's logic, by the way.
That is not logic. You're so
No,
fucking
that's not.
stupid. It's painful.
That's not, Logan.
Oh my
it's
gosh.
not. And we're gonna cut this short because listen, because we can't really get past this conversation. This is why it's getting so confrontational, Logan. Because you don't believe in the concept between the difference between gender and sex. And the fact of the matter is, like, you are focusing in on a very, very minor little thing, which is like, I don't want a penis in the bathroom. Well, the thing is, when I go to the bathroom, I'm not freaking flailing my freaking body parts all over the place. I just go to the stall and I pee and I leave. Just like I'm sure that happens with you too. You go to the urinal or you go to the stall and you go and you leave. Like, the thing is, the obsession that people have about going into the bathroom with somebody next to them and wondering what's in their pants is weird. It's strange. I don't understand why that matters so much. We shouldn't be dictating our laws based on somebody's creepy want to know what's in the pants of the stranger standing next to them. That's not a good way to legislate policy. If we decided to say, oh, this small portion of the people in the country, let's say Jehovah Witnesses, they think it's completely wrong and creepy that people do blood transfusions. Should we end all blood transfusions because a Jehovah's Witness decides that I don't want to be associated with people that do blood transfusions? It's icky. No. We would not stop blood transfusions and hurt people because some small portion of society decides that it's not important, that it shouldn't be done for people to save people's lives. It's the same type of thing. The idea that we should legislate over some very minor portion of the population to say, okay, this person thinks that they don't want a penis in the bathroom, so we're going to create blanket laws and have the government be so fucking big that they're going to have fucking genital checks at every bathroom stall just to make sure that somebody doesn't walk in with the discomfort of somebody may have a penis or not, is absurd. Logan, wouldn't you agree that that's an absurd way to govern in our country?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want my taxes going
why
to
are
somebody.
why are we having a
I said I don't want my
taxes going to a freaking gender cop. I don't want my taxes going to some security guard standing in front of every bathroom just to make sure a trans woman doesn't walk in. Doesn't that sound absurd? Because that's the logic that we are getting to. That's why Arden started the conversation the way she did, is because there's no mechanism to enforce this ridiculous law, and to enforce it requires a lot of resources, a lot of manpower, and also the fact that you're going to have to genital tap people just to make sure that they have a vagina or they have a penis. Like, think about all the assaults that would happen that moment you want to go to the bathroom. Oh, I got to go get my dick touched before I go to the bathroom because big government wants me to fucking have that done because some people are uncomfortable about the penis that I might have in the stall next to them. That is an absurd way of thinking. Wouldn't you agree with that, Logan?
Sure.
Yeah. So that's why we get really frustrated in conversations like this, because we understand the alternative. Because if we created laws based on people's comfort at that level, we wouldn't be able to walk across the street without offending somebody. And oh my God, they walked across the street, put them in jail forever because their car had to slow down and they're not following the rules of the road. And I get mad when people do that. Like, it would be insanity. And that's why when we have these calls, I talk about the rights of people, because it would affect more people to enforce the bullshit law of making bathrooms illegal, because that would cause women and men and everybody to have their dicks fondled before they even go through the door. And I don't want to live in that world. And that's why there's a difference between gender and sex. There's a difference between gender and sex because societally, we have been doing this since the dawn of time. We had trans women as Roman emperors. We've had trans people fight in the Civil War. We've had people all over the world throughout history that have just existed and just lived their lives. I just think that it's a recent phenomenon that people have become so bigoted and hateful because somebody just wants to live their lives just because they want to go to the bathroom. That's why things get so hostile. Does that make sense, Logan?
Yes, but it doesn't need to be. I mean, did I ever insult anyone? Did I tell them they're
No,
stupid?
but you were dishonest and you refused to answer questions.
But the logical conclusion, Logan, was where we were trying to go, right? Because the questions that Arden was asking you was leading up to what we concluded, which would be in a ridiculous way to enforce a law, right? Because it would be a ridiculous way to enforce a law if we made a biological determination if you could use the bathroom or not. Be it be dick scans, be it be chromosomal scans, be it be a security guard tapping your penis to make sure that you can go in that bathroom. That's why we started off with the biological determination versus the social determination of why we go to certain bathrooms that we do. Because the world that we say it's biologically determinate means that we are going to get our body scanned. And guess who's going to be doing that? The fucking government. And I don't want the government scanning my junk. That's the last place I want the places to do. Right? So maybe call me small government. Like if you want to say that, and people who want genital inspectors at the bathroom are big government. I don't know what that is, but hey, some people, that's what rocks their boat. So Logan, maybe we just have a different belief on how government should be run.
I didn't even enter this to exactly talk about government, but I wasn't.
I know, but that's what you said illegal. You said the word illegal.
Yes, it is.
Logan, did you not say the word illegal?
Yes.
That's government.
Yeah. Well,
what makes things illegal?
Okay.
Government.
But I was told nobody's checking your parts. And I was like, well, yeah, if I walked into a bathroom, the women would say, get out.
But you said it should be illegal. Therefore, the government has to get involved to enforce.
I think I said it is illegal.
No, it's not. It's not illegal.
It's not illegal.
Women
it's not illegal anywhere.
There are a handful of states where it's illegal, but it wasn't illegal for all of history before that.
Well,
yeah, they're trying to make it illegal. Like there isn't even full blanket bathroom bans that are outside of government buildings. Right. So the reality is, like, even in the construct that we live currently in this day and age, there is no blanket bathroom ban. So therefore, there is no illegality to it. So right now we're trying to create, some people are trying to create where it is blanket ban across the country. Therefore, it would use tax dollars to enforce a stupid thing that we've been doing throughout time. So I'm trying to fight against government trying to do bullshit laws that cause government resources and time and money and actually try to solve real problems, not problems that don't exist, like trans people using the bathroom.
No, it is a real problem because there are women that don't want penises in their bathroom.
Oh my God. And there were a massive majority of whites who didn't want blacks in their bathroom in the civil rights era. Because you have an irrational prejudice against people, assuming them to shut the fuck up. Shut your fucking mouth.
I'm done.
Yeah, no, you're muted. You're going to be my little bitch until you're done with this call. Actually, I've been trying to stop using bitch in that term, so I retract that. But you're going to be my little fucking dog on a leash until I'm done with you.
Notice how insulting they
Throughout the civil rights era, people irrationally feared that black people would be more violent, and so they justified segregation on things like that. Because you have an irrational prejudice about the potential violence that trans women pose, does not in any way justify banning an entire group of people, an entire category, from access to free participation in society. If you ban me from the women's restroom, I don't get to use the restroom in public, because if I use the men's restroom, I'm causing a commotion. And if I use the women's restroom, I'm getting arrested. It functionally bars me from being able to use the restroom in public. So no, I don't give a fuck if one woman or if 20 women or if 20% of women object to. They don't, by the way. Those numbers do not exist. But even if they did, it wouldn't matter, because we don't ban people because somebody has an irrational prejudice about that group. I see you're talking, but nobody's going to hear you because I own you for the rest of the call.
Yeah, I assume I'm muted.
Yeah,
so
Logan, I'm kind of done, because we got to a point where we were talking about, yeah, that's irrational and that's a silly way to govern. And then you went right back to, but some people don't want penises in the bathroom. So you do want to govern that way. And
it's because Logan's dishonest. Exactly. That's why I stopped talking to him in the beginning, because I appreciate that you have the patience and the sensitivity to walk through that part. That's important for the audience to see, for sure. But immediately, like, I didn't bring up bathrooms or biological spaces. Like, that was not where I thought that conversation was going. That's where Logan wanted to take the call. So fair. He should be able to answer direct questions about that, but he's too fucking dishonest to answer direct questions because he knows the implications of it. And he doesn't want to accept that because it undermines the entire worldview. And it makes him really uncomfortable. And I can still see him talking, and it's so funny.
Sure, let me talk.
Let me talk. Toy.
Well, Logan, I'm done. Call back another time or not. But yeah,
not when I'm on.
I'm not interested in your way of governing the country.
Blah 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 defense. It shows me
went right back to. But some people don't want penises in the bathroom, so you do want to govern that way. And
it's because Logan's dishonest. Exactly. That's why I stopped talking to him in the beginning, because I appreciate that you have the patience and the sensitivity to walk through that part, because that's important for the audience to see, for sure. But immediately, like, I didn't bring up bathrooms or biological spaces. Like, that was not where I thought that conversation was going. That's where Logan wanted to take the call.
Oh my God. I literally put in a thing. I want to challenge your views. And did they ever really defend their views much? No. They were all throwing it back on me, throwing it back on me, throwing it back on me. But that's okay. They can discriminate against women, but let's do everything for trans women.
Call. So fair. He should be able to answer direct questions about that, but he's too fucking dishonest to answer direct questions because he knows the implications of it. And he doesn't want to accept that because it undermines his entire worldview. And it makes him really uncomfortable. And I can still see him talking, and it's so funny. I mean, like a toy.
Arden is a coward. Arden is a coward. He is a little green coward.
Bye, Logan. Man, getting heated that early. I generally try not to get that heated that early, but when you refuse to answer a direct question and you give me an blah, blah, blah,
you know why? Because it's a stupid fucking question, Art. Is anybody checking your junk as they walk in? Well, no, they fucking aren't, you idiot. You know the answer to that. Fuck you, Arden. You're an idiot. My gosh. I thought you lived with a guy that's supposed to be so logical. But oh my gosh, I would stomp you and Matt in this debate. But I'll get another person. You guys debate me. I'll get another person. We'll tag team, and we will stomp you in a fair game. Don't sit there and play this little, I'm going to mute you because I don't want to hear what you have to say.
Blah 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 defense. It shows me that you clearly know the logical conclusions of what's about to happen, and you're unwilling to honestly address it. And like, and I was just gonna say, if he acknowledged, yeah, it is socially enforced, but I don't like that because I think it should be sex segregated. It never would have gotten that heated. I would have been disgusted with his worldview.
Because some people were honest, Arden. Some people are honest that they have a dick between their pants, okay? Between their legs. So yes, some things are socially supported. For example, if I leave something at work, somebody could take it. I wouldn't know who they were. Did they steal? Because it's just sitting there. I don't know. I wasn't supposed to leave it at work, but we have a social contract that people will be nice and not take it, Arden. So yes, people with penis should be nice and not go into the women's restroom. And yes, there are women, lots of women that do not want a penis in their bathroom, but you don't care about that. All you care about is where you want to go to the bathroom. Because, oh my gosh, you're going to be picked on if you go in the men's bathroom. Well, you may be picked on if you got me. I just kind of, oh, hey, what's up? I might kind of find it weird because I'm not used to it, but I don't care. Anyway,
for sure. But he would have answered the question honestly, and I would have been able to proceed from.
How about you let me ask some questions, Arden? How about that? Since I was there to challenge your views, okay? But no, you had your little script that you probably ran a million times. Well, nobody's checking you, so why should people be checking me? Why don't you just be honest, Arden, and not walk into a fucking woman's restroom when you're a man?
From there, knowing that at the very least, while Logan and I have very different views about gender and sex and how we operate the world.
Yes, mine are correct and yours are wrong.
That he is willing to answer a direct question honestly. If you're not willing to answer a direct question honestly, you are no use.
How about my direct questions, Arden? I didn't even get to ask any, did I?
This debate space. You have an agenda that you are trying to force through.
Oh, you have an agenda, Arden. Okay, if I have an agenda, you got to admit that you have an agenda, and you exactly do that every Thursday when you put your dick online and talk about it.
And I don't need to talk to people like that. It's completely pointless.
You're exactly right. You want your safe space, and you guys will just shut out anybody that disagrees, despite the fact, Arden, that I was far more polite than you. Even if I'm avoiding a question, that doesn't give you the right to be insulting and condescending. It does not. You've learned too much from Matt, the little prima donna Matt. Oh, and by the way, Matt, don't you talk about don't let you put my woman in your mouth. Okay, if you're serious, let's meet somewhere.
And the thing is, it's like, and I did the exercise of like the reason, and remember, it always went back to the original part of that call, which is like, if you would have just answered these questions directly, we could have got there, but it took 30 minutes to get to the point of, do you realize that your worldview would take?
You know why? Because you guys got up on your platform and just had your talk, and I'm just sitting here. You're talking about nothing that I brought up. Okay, when you host, you should condition the conversation to your guest, but instead you guys wanted to condition and modify the conversation to what you wanted to. Okay, I didn't even talk about all this, what's going on Capitol Hill. They did.
A massive amount of government resources and manpower and assaults of people to get their freaking gender freaking tapped and like confirmed just to go to the effing bathrooms. Like, yeah, that is kind of ridiculous and insane. Yeah, because that's what,
you know why? Because we can't trust you guys to be honest. That's exactly why. If you guys would be honest, go in your fucking biological bathrooms.
But that's the worldview that you get to. And then when I'm like, all right, great. So we agree that that's dumb and we shouldn't do that. Well, it's like, yeah, right. Yeah. Because
Did you know I name dropped Helen Joyce and Deborah Soh and they didn't even flinch? Probably because they've never heard of them and probably they've never even read their works. Are you guys able to see what's going on in the chat? Oh boy, I've been insulted left and right. No, it's amazing. You go in and you don't insult anyone really. I mean, I may be insulting after the call, but during the call and before the call, I wasn't insulting at all. But Matt, you're a little cuck. Okay, Matt, you're a cuck. Your ex-wife said that, so you're a cuck.
Actually believe that the government better serves by the enforcing big
months because we've had such good, consistently honest callers. And look,
I'm glad they got triggered though, because they're probably glad that they think I got triggered.
And some ridiculous proposition, which we haven't decided on what that'll be yet. But we have a lot of callers, and wow.
All right, so I guess they're done with talking about me. Wow. So that was fun. Wow. So the whole time I was reading the chat and just people were just insulting left and right. And, if it were meant to be humorous. Like if I misspoke and somebody made fun of it, fine. And, and I really don't care about people insulting me. I don't know these people. But, Arden just immediately went into defensive mode. Josie seems pretty nice. But Arden is just, she's like Matt. She's a queen. And you say one thing or you do one thing that to disagree with. And then you cannot, for the rest of the conversation, have a rational conversation. And note, Arden said, okay, I'm not even going to talk to you anymore. I'm going to let Josie handle it with her fake voice. And she couldn't resist jumping in. And, Arden is a bitch. A man bitch, but a bitch. They're prima donnas. They want their safe space. I will try to contact them and see if we can debate live in a fair space, but I bet they won't do it. So we will see. If you watch this, thank you. If you didn't, okay. Talk to you later.